Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Bird's Nest Podcast. I'm Joe Donahue. Thank you so much for joining us. The Philadelphia Eagles travel to Tampa Bay this weekend to take on the Buccaneers in what is becoming an annual grudge match for this team. Now, barring a tie, either the Eagles or the Buccaneers will be coming out of this game 4-0, while the other will be dealt with their first loss of the season. And this is going to be a challenging game for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Buccaneers have won 4 of their last 5 regular season matchups. So it's definitely something that looms large over this team. The Buccaneers are a perennial thorn in the Eagles' side. And hopefully the Eagles are going to be able to come away with a victory this week. So let's talk about this game and what it's going to take to win against the Buccaneers. Now I'm going to start with the defense. And we will start with them because there is some bad news on the defensive front for the Birds. Nolan Smith and Jacorian Bennett were both placed on injured reserve on Wednesday. Now, the pass rush is going to be a key for the Philadelphia Eagles, who are going up against a QB in Baker Mayfield, who has 6 sacks on the season. The Buccaneers have gone against markedly inferior teams than the Eagles, but the team that probably came the closest to beating them, the Texans, was able to deliver 4 sacks against the Buccaneers. Now, the Eagles obviously losing Nolan Smith and Jacorian Bennett doesn't bode well for them in the pass rush game, but it is still going to play a very large factor, and how can the Eagles defense compensate for some of the gaps that are going to be left behind by those 2 players. Now, I'd also note that the Buccaneers are down a bunch of wide receivers heading into this game. Notably, Chris Godwin Jr., who was slated to come back this week, was downgraded to a non-participant in practice on Thursday. As of this recording, we don't have Friday's report yet, but with Mike Evans likely out with a hamstring injury, the Eagles will be contending with a wide receiver core for the Buccaneers that has been stretched a little thin. So there will be some opportunity for the Eagles to really make a statement in the pass defense. And when you also consider the fact that Baker Mayfield hasn't been able to fully practice this week due to a bicep injury, that could be a factor as well. So we'll obviously see if any of that has an impact on Sunday, but the pass defense definitely going to be critical for the Philadelphia Eagles. The next key to the game is going to be the red zone. Now, the Eagles are a perfect 100% on red zone conversions, scoring touchdowns on all 7 of their appearances there so far this season. Meanwhile, the defense is allowing a 44.44% conversion rate in the red zone, with a 60% conversion rate on goal-to-go situations. This was very evident in the LA Rams game last week, where the Eagles forced the Rams to have to kick field goal after field goal after field goal in the first half, only allowing 1 touchdown in the red zone, and that was off of a Jalen Hurts fumble. Now, Vic Fangio spoke about the Eagles' red zone defense earlier this week.
You know, every trip down there is an adventure in and of itself. We practice a lot, so the game changes when you're in the red zone. It's not a good thing to be in the red zone on defense, but it is a defensive advantage with that inline being right there. So the game changes. The way the game is played, particularly in the passing game. So we try and get our players used to doing that.
When you take a look at the Buccaneers side of the football, they have a defense that's allowing teams to score touchdowns in the red zone 42.86% of the time, which is a little better than the Eagles, but not much. It's probably about on par when you factor in everything. That number does jump up to 66.67% if the opposing offense gets into a goal-to-go situation. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers' offense is only converting about 44% of red zone appearances into touchdowns, so that's definitely going to be something that the Eagles will have some room to work with. But ultimately, the Eagles will need to continue their bend but not break mentality when they face the Buccaneers, or it's going to be a very long afternoon on Sunday. The third key to this game is going to be keeping Jalen Hurts calm in the pocket. Now, the Bucs have this annoying propensity to rattle Jalen Hurts, and Todd Bowles is very good at dialing up pressure to make it happen. Jalen Hurts was sacked 6 times in their Week 4 matchup last season, and 3 times during the Philadelphia Eagles matchup against the Buccaneers in the wild card round in 2023. Now, some good news for the Birds is that they will very likely have Lane Johnson back, and they surely need him. Fred Johnson was a great backup after the Eagles tried and failed with Matt Pryor. Fred Johnson really did have a little bit of a stabilizing force, but Lane Johnson is seemingly irreplaceable. And the Eagles have an abysmal record without Lane Johnson in the game. So the fact that the Eagles are very likely to have Lane Johnson back is going to be a real lifesaver for them on the offensive line and should help to kind of stabilize things when the Philadelphia Eagles are trying to keep Jalen Hurts calm, trying to buy him as much time as possible to find the open guy or to make the right decision. Now, the Eagles have also been seeing a lot more teams blitz them this season, and Kevin Patullo spoke about that on Tuesday.
I think really, the first half of the season, always people have all off season obviously to game plan you, right? So they're looking for ways to stop you. We've played all these teams multiple times; they know us really well, and so they're just looking for stuff, right? They're wanting to try new things and seeing what they can do against us. So I think that's a little piece of it. And I think just by nature, if you look around the league, I think pressure's up a little bit in general. I watched a little of the game last night and listened to someone on the radio when I drove home. So like you can see and just hear what's happening around the league. I think that's a little bit of a trend, and it'll probably continue. I mean, really, when you look at it as a whole, I think it's every down now. Teams are doing something to create, something that they want to get done, whether it's one line of defense, whatever their identity is defensively. So yeah, I think it's just happening more frequently in general. And like I said, if you look around the league, I think you see more of it.
But ultimately, the Eagles have to find a way to get Jalen Hurts as much time in the pocket so that way he can be calm and he can get the ball to his receivers, he can take off with his legs, he can make whatever decision he needs to do in order to deal with the Buccaneers' pass rush. Speaking of the offense, I do think that the next key to this game, just like this past week, is going to be the passing offense. And I don't think that anyone expected to have this little production out of Saquon so far this season. And I've been one of the folks banging the drum that he won't hit 2,000 rushing yards again this year. Now, Saquon hit 194 rushing yards on 58 carries through the first 3 weeks, but he hasn't had a 100-plus yard rushing game so far this season. And I'm not sure that this week is going to be the week for that either. Tampa Bay is allowing on average 84 rushing yards per game. That's 6th in the league through 3 weeks. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers are 19th in the league in passing yards per game at 213. So there's your opportunity. Just like last week, the Eagles have to find a way to try to dice up the Buccaneers through the air. The Eagles are not a top 10 run offense yet this year through 3 weeks, but last week was their best passing appearance yet. 202 net passing yards, combined with their worst run performance yet. Now, I'm not advocating for abandoning the run, but the more that Jalen Hurts puts the ball into the hands of his best receivers, the more likely this is going to go well for this Philadelphia Eagles team. Now, the final key to this game is going to be, very simply, be aggressive. Jalen Hurts had an interview with Pam Oliver where he said that they were initially playing not to lose the game.
We play so many styles of football where in that first half we got to get out of this playing not to lose. We got to come out aggressive and play our game. You saw our game in the second half.
Now, I don't think that I'm alone when I say that I was not impressed with the play calling in the first half of Sunday. Meanwhile, the second half really wowed me. The Philadelphia Eagles were finally playing with aggression. Now, Nick Sirianni was very quick to dispel rumors on Monday that Kevin Patullo wasn't calling plays as much in the second half. But the reason that the fans booed the team off the field at the end of the first half, very simply, was because they were playing with a very lackadaisical attitude and they were not playing with aggression. Now, before we go any further, I do want to point out there's a difference between aggression and risk. Risk is going for it on 4th down and more than 1 yard in your own territory. That's a very risky move. Does it pay off? Yes, it can. But it also has a very dire consequence if you do not convert on that play. That's why it's a risk. Aggression, meanwhile, is trying for a 1st down when it's 3rd down and 2 sticks, instead of handing the ball off to Saquon Barkley, who's only been getting a couple of yards at best per carry throughout the game to that point, which is something that the Eagles were doing quite a bit of in the first half. Whatever player needs to light a fire in the bellies of this team ought to do so. The Philadelphia Eagles need to play aggressively, and they need to call this game aggressively. So those are my keys to the game, but what are your thoughts? What are your keys to the game? What are you going to be watching out for as the Philadelphia Eagles take the field on Sunday in Tampa Bay? Let me know. And thank you so much to everyone for tuning into the Bird's Nest Podcast. You can support the Bird's Nest Podcast by liking and subscribing to Bird's Nest Media right here on YouTube, as well as by sharing to your social media pages. You can also find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, and iHeartRadio. Please visit birdsnestmedia.com for additional Eagles and NFL coverage, and if you feel so inclined to support us in a different way, you can find the link to our Patreon in the description below, or at birdsnestmedia.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's go Eagles!